going on, people? It's Mr. Do Daily back again for the latest Dialing with Des on the DoreOnTour YouTube channel. Looking forward to picking the bones out of that defeat at Arsenal on Sunday, talking about all things Forest and asking the question where we go from here. Lots to get through. Hopefully lots of people want to get involved. Really looking forward to doing another show. Even if Mr. Dore is giving me the graveyard shift on a Tuesday night while all the football's on, really do love talking about Forest. So if you'd like to join me, please hit the link at the top of the chat. I'll put that up now. All you have to do is hit that, come in, say what you've got to say. Hopefully we can have some positive conversation, get to the crux of it, and really start feeling positive again. That's what I'm hoping for. Of course, it was a tough one to take. My thoughts on the game, it was really tough. It was a tough watch, wasn't it? Especially in that second half. I think we all got to half time thinking we could perhaps take something after digging in after the first goal. Are we back at square one? That's a question I'm asking as well. Who stood out? Do you know who played well? Who's not quite cutting the mustard? All the familiar questions. We're sitting at the bottom of the Premier League, but that result against Liverpool gave us a shoot in the arm and gave us some confidence. Is it the end of the matter now? Do you know, have we got to get points against Brentford and Crystal Palace at home? I feel we have to. I've said as much elsewhere. We really need points to take in to the break. Do you know, with a bit of confidence, sit on that over the World Cup and not be detached. If we're not detached, you know, we all seen last year, Newcastle, teams have done it in the past. They've climbed off the bottom. And being bottom at Christmas won't quite be the same this year as it normally is. Normally it means relegation. But of course, the season breaks up for a couple of months. And does that give Forest a chance to regroup? They're all the things I'm going to talk about. Oh, one other thing, and I probably am going to get on my soapbox whilst I keep it all positive. This thing about singing at away games, it's really got on my nerves. I can't believe fans are moaning at other fans for singing. I've never heard anything so ridiculous in all my life. So if anybody's got any opinions on that, I'd love to hear about those. I'll get to your comments shortly. Of course, that link's still stuck up there. Please get in touch. Leave your comments on. Like I say, I'll get through as many as I can. Read them out, see what people have got to say. Of course, the usual stuff. Give this episode a thumbs up to show some support to myself and Mr. Dore and the channel. And if you're new to the channel, please do subscribe. Dore's trying to get up to 9K. He's not far. And ultimately, he's trying to get to 10K by the end of the season. For all the flack I give him all week, you know, he does work really hard at this, and he's given me an opportunity to come and get involved as well. We work well together on doing certain things, so it's a pleasure to do it. And again, it's just a pleasure to talk about Forest. When we get beat, it can be quite tough. I have to get that tin out. But like I said, every week I really look forward to it. So if you can give some love to the channel, that would be amazing, and get behind it the best you can. Of course, if you want to donate, there's always ways. The super chat, you know, what Dore does, it all comes out of his own time and effort. You know, it's all for the love of it. So get behind the channel in that way. Or you can be a subscriber to the channel and pay £2.99 a month to view all the content and a little bit more. Do you know, I think it's worth it. That's how I got involved initially, because I watch a lot of it, you know, and I pay a lot of money for other things that I don't really watch a lot of. So really, you really can get behind the channel if you want. What I'll say before I go any further, I've got my own channel. The information is going across the bottom of the page there. Do daily. Something a little bit different, just trying to be positive, as I'm always trying to be on here, about general life and the things I do. You know, I do a lot of activity, and I try and encourage people to sort of check in with the mental health and things like that, without it being about mental health. It's all examples of how I go about my daily business. So if I could get some subscribers to that, people get a little bit scared when I explain it, but it's nothing to be scared of. It's just me trying to be relatable and honest. If I could get some subscribers through this, that would be absolutely amazing too. I'd really appreciate that kind of support. So without going on about those too much, I'll keep reminding you, if you've got any questions, do drop us a comment. It'll be fantastic to hear from you tonight. So I'm going to get through a few of those before I get the first guest in. Ben says, hello, mate. I hope you're well. Love the content you do. Do your thing. Signing Cooper is a long-term plan to get us back up to the Prem. Let's hope so, Ben. Thanks for the nice comments there. Sonny says, evening. Eve's in as usual. Evening, Des. Hope you're well. Hope you're well, Eve. Cameron, are you going to the Tottenham game? I'll be there at the Tottenham game. My ticket sorted. We've actually got 3 games in a week, haven't we, at home at the City Ground? So that's going to be interesting to say the least. If it goes well, it could give us a real fillet and real excitement for that second half of the season. Keep mentioning that World Cup break. If it don't go so well, it could be a bit of a struggle and a bit of a tough time, you know, and a few people getting on each other's case, like I touched on there. But we'll come back to that later. Chris says, evening, Mr. Do Daily. Up the Reds. All focus on Brentford. Absolutely. These feel like the winnable ones, don't they? I'm not saying it's going to be easy. Every game in the Premier League's tough. We've experienced that already. But it feels like it could be one of those that we could get some points out of. And of course, Tony got booked as well in the last minute. So we'll miss the game. And you'd always take the star striker missing no matter who you're playing. So that can only be a plus, although I'm sure they've got talent all over the pitch, as we know from previous seasons gone by. Comment here from Ricky, need to play Mangala and O'Brien now when they are fit. Good point. Lots of people talking about the midfield. I've got my own opinions on that. I'm sure that will come out through the episode. Peter the Irish guy, stop making excuses for Cooper. We need to put club before manager. I know Peter's not a fan. He did promise to come on last week, but we never saw him. So if you want to come on, Peter, and make your point, welcome you in. And of course, everybody's entitled to whatever they think. So it'd be great to talk about it. Cameron's retaliated that by saying manager makes the club basically. I tend to agree. You know, I tend to agree on that one. Ricky says losing patience with Lingard. Again, we'll talk about individual performances. Ben, so Ricky Lingard wouldn't make Notts County side. Is a shell of the man last season. And Cameron says, what stand are you going to be at? I'm in the Bridgeford end, where I always am in my season ticket seat. So some comments there to get us going. The audience is building throughout. Like I say, please drop us a like on this episode. Show me some support so I don't get sacked before Cooper. Please drop us a like and a view. It'll be absolutely amazing. And, of course, give us a follow on Do Daily. Keep your comments coming. I'll keep popping in with those. Keep getting as many as I can on. It is normally quite busy, so I'll do my absolute best. But without sort of going on too much, let's get someone else's opinion. I'm going to bring in Mark. Evening, Mark. Are you all right?
Hello, fella. Yeah, I'm doing well. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yeah.
Fantastic.
Where are you calling from, Mark?
I am located in beautiful Colorado Springs, Colorado, USA.
Wow, that's a fantastic place to be calling in from. And I knew that there was a possibility of someone coming on, and then I saw the daylight behind you, and I thought it's not like that here. It's very wet, windy, and cold.
Yeah, when Dora hit me up about coming on, I hadn't really appreciated it was going to be in between appointments. So I was hoping I'd be in my office with all my forest paraphernalia in the background, or at the very least, able to show you a window where you can see the Rocky Mountains. Instead, I'm sat in some drab parking lot somewhere outside apartments, and you're not seeing the best of Colorado Springs. But nevertheless, here I am. Pleasure to be with you.
Absolutely. And it's a pleasure to have you. You say we're not seeing the best of Colorado Springs. We didn't really see the best of Forest at the weekend, did we?
Yeah, that was a rough one. I was up at 7 o'clock in the morning to head out to the local British pub here, where they serve good British beer and a decent breakfast as well, to hang out with a mate of mine who was an Arsenal fan. And the pub, as you might expect, was heaving with Arsenal fans. I think I was the only one in there representing the proper Reds. And from sort of 4 or 5 minutes in, it was head down in hand, and yeah, it was a tough one. It was a tough one. I think the thing that was most disturbing was the performance second half. We haven't really seen that. We saw echoes of that, I think, in the Leicester game, where the guys, I wouldn't say gave up, but they just seemed dispirited. it looked like they wanted it to be over, which I can appreciate, because I remember looking up at the clock and thinking, got another 20 minutes of this yet. And I wanted it to be over too. So that was a little alarming. And Cooper, addressed that at the end of the match and talked a little bit about that and how that was unacceptable. And so I think we're going to see a different Nottingham Forest this next time out.
I think you make a good point there. I was at the game and I looked up at the clock end at Arsenal and thought, oh my God, there's still 30 minutes to go and it's 4-0. But,
right.
I think it's interesting that last thing you said, because obviously when you're at the game, you get a bit of a perspective on it, and you hear people ranting and raving and different opinions, and you're trying to build it up and what people are saying back on at home or people who've watched it on the TV. So it was really interesting when I saw Cooper's response to it, how he questioned a lack of fight, a lack of running and a lack of commitment. It's not something I've seen very much from Cooper. I was massively critical after the Leicester game. I felt they gave up a little bit before half time, and Cooper backed them that day. But I thought I didn't notice it too much. Again, you just kept kind of wrapped up in the old thing, and I don't want to be accused of being a happy clapper and only seeing Forest through rose-tinted glasses, because I'm definitely not that. Like I said, I criticised them in the Leicester game, but it was interesting that he kind of went for them a little bit. There was a slight change in team selection, and you saw with the substitutions there was a formation change again as well. I just wonder if he's starting to sort of drift back to his old ideas of 3-5-2 and some of the familiar faces. That's something, again, you might not have seen it on Match of the Day here on Sunday night. Mikel Antonio was almost he was on there as a special guest. He was almost calling for Cooper to play some of the old boys, and it's something I was doing about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Sam Surridges, Joe Worrells, just to give us that little bit more fight. Because what I worry with some of these guys, that they look quite pleasing on the eye at times. Foyer maybe and Loddy at left back, but they don't really get stuck in either. And that's starting to concern me a little bit. I hope it's not going to become a thing over the next couple of games. Do you think he can sort that out? And how do you mentioned there's probably going to be some changes. How do you see it changing going forward?
Blimey. Okay. You gave me about 6 questions there, mate. All right, let's try and pick the bones out of that one. Well, first off, I'll tell you one thing I did, to your point, I did see, hear and feel from the Cooper post-match was definitely a shift in his attitude. So he tends to be very affable, right? He's a pretty easygoing guy. He's a straight shooter. He doesn't BS. He'll sort of say it like it is, and I've always appreciated that about him. But it was a real steal, I think, to his responses. And I think managers can go one or two ways after a result like that. The shoulders slump and they sort of look beat. We saw that from Conte, didn't we, a couple of months ago, or whatever it was, and everyone was speculating he was going to be out the door because he'd had enough of Tottenham and kind of their lackluster performances at the time. And we didn't see that from Cooper. It seemed like a new resolve and kind of a simmering anger. It made me think I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in the dressing room after that particular game and after that particular result and after that particular performance, which was pretty gutless, particularly in the second half. I'd like to see that side of Cooper. I'd like to see the hairdryers and the teacups flying around, because I think he has that in him. I think he has that nastiness in him, and I think he's going to need to display it. And so that kind of ties into something else you said in regards to selection. So you asked the question, do you think there are going to be some selection changes? Do you think he can put this right? I'm going to firmly get splinters in my arse here by saying both yes and no. So yes, do there need to be changes? Absolutely. Do they have to be wholesale? No, I think we're just going to continue to spiral if that's what you continue to do. If this is musical chairs, we're going to go nowhere. The issue with this team right now is that it's not a team right now. Right, it's a bunch of individual players who I said earlier in the season I felt were either had been really good at the Premier League and maybe weren't quite good enough now, or on the fringes of, if they show up and have a good day, they can have a good performance, and players who have not played in the Premier League who haven't really shown their mettle yet. So we're kind of in this weird space where we don't really have very many players on the books who are like solid, middle of the road, hardcore Premier League, shown it, can do it all day long. So it's going to take a little while to build this team. So wholesale changes aren't going to help. That said, you mentioned Surridge. One of the issues I think Forest have right now is when they are able to get possession, which in the Premier League isn't that much, they're trying to break lines. They're trying to find that front line. And unfortunately, at this moment in time, we need to have a winger either side of the field or a number 9, more importantly, who can really hold the ball. Now, there are going to be some folks who say, well, Awani is doing that. Well, yeah, to a certain extent, but not really. He's not doing it to the degree we need with the kind of regularity that we need. The ball's pinging off of him. It's not sticking to him. He's not coming short for it. He's expecting everything kind of long into the channels. He's trying to roll off his defender. And so we're breaking the lines and essentially in doing so, giving the ball back to the opposition. And so that needs to be addressed. And I don't know what the answer is there. I think Surridge could potentially be, if not a solution, then another option to look at in the 9. And I think Cooper needs to do something with those wingers. I think right now our wingers are neither fish nor fowl. They're neither doing one thing nor another. They're not stretching and getting in behind their fullbacks and saying, put it over the top, give me a foot race. They're not really coming short and linking up the midfield. We saw them tuck inside in the previous game, the Liverpool game, to kind of congest things and force Liverpool out wide. That looked good. But yeah, it's just all a little fractured right now. So there's work to be done, but I think the quality's there. But it's not going to be fixed overnight.
I think you're right. I totally agree with the points you made. The one thing I find disappointing at the weekend is I was really confident after the Liverpool game and the Brighton game. We got, as fans, that was at Brighton, and I'm not just sort of patting us on the back saying we were there, but again, for going and getting behind the team, we were criticised for almost saying it's a good point. Other people were saying we faced 12 shots in the first half, and they're right. When I was talking about the game at half time, I thought there's only one way this is going, but we dug out a result. And then from that, and then the Liverpool performance, it almost felt, I started to feel like we was turning the corner. And that's not just blind optimism. That I feel like I look at the game and look at the performances and know a little bit, and I just started to feel really confident.
Mm.
We remember back to Cooper sort of working with players that weren't his last season, who weren't performing, who weren't doing very much, just pretty much in the way they are now. And he had to get a lot more out of them and get them going. And then in January, he put 1 or 2 new faces in there and got them going again. So it just really felt like a penny drop moment for me. Again, I use that term somewhere else, but it felt like a penny drop moment where they started to gel, but then all of a sudden we go to Arsenal. Yes, Arsenal are a very good side, and that first goal was a bit of a killer. I was saying all week, we need to hold on for 20, 30, 40 minutes, get the home crowd sort of like on their back, worried. They'd not been scoring that many recently, Arsenal. And if we could have just held them out, by hook or by crook, and we gave them a goal, we've shown that naivety again. I've been praising Yatesy a lot over the last couple of weeks. I said he was absolutely magnificent after Liverpool.
Yeah, agreed.
He should have put that ball down the line, and then that's all it takes. I'm not saying there was other mistakes within that first goal. I think Cook shouldn't have got beat with a player coming across the near post. But we know losing the ball in the Premier League is criminal, and it just felt like it was all disjointed again. It felt like it was all a bit ragged. You mentioned they were compact against Liverpool. Everybody knew the job. Everybody knew what they were doing. But as soon as that first goal went in, it was like the confidence just sapped out of them again, and we were back to square one. That's why I'm using that term. I don't think we are. I think the next 2 games will tell us that. Again, we have to take some of these hits, and for as much as people are saying, I'm not happy getting beat 5-0. I'm not happy getting beat 5-0. It hurts. It really, really hurts. And it's tough to watch. And of course, we pay our money and we want to enjoy it the best we can. but we are going to get some of these hits. This is what happens. Do you know, we've seen in the past Man United beat Arsenal 8-2 because this is what can happen in the Premier League. So we're going to have to take some of these. What I'm getting to more than anything, Mark, is those next couple of games, you know, and the importance of those in your mind. What is it? What's acceptable to take away from that, take into the break? Of course, we've got the Spurs game sort of sandwiched between the two in the cup. Does that help or hinder? Do you know, what are your thoughts over this period of 3 games in a week and how we go into this break?
Yeah, I mean, you make some excellent points there, mate. You know, I'm going to throw Southampton in the mix there too, is right. We're getting battered 9-0, you know, twice in the last 2 seasons. And so, you know, to your point, it's slim margins in the Premier League. I mean, you think it's slim margins in the Championship, you make a mistake, maybe you get punished. In the Premier League, you definitely get punished. And when you don't get punished, it's generally down to poor execution more than anything else. You know, it's, oh, Mo Salah whiffs a shot. That's not going to happen again. Put him in that spot with the ball at his feet right there. It's in the back of the net next time. And you know, and you're lucky if there is a next time, because chances are he'll do it first time out. And then chances are, if he gets an opportunity again, he'll do it twice. So margins are so slim. It's very difficult. I think, you know, to your point about the next 2 games, I think one of the things that we as a Forest fan base need to keep in mind is that I think we have a tendency, and I think all fans have a tendency, to kind of lump teams into 3 categories. Sort of top 6 or the higher echelons, you know, the Cities, the Chelseas, the Arsenals, the Liverpools. Then there's that mid-pack, and then there's those, you know, scratching around at the bottom, trying to stay at the bottom 3. And I think we loosely categorize teams in that fashion. So then when we look at something like a Brentford or a Wolves or whoever it may be, we sort of say, oh yeah, they're in that category, therefore we should beat them. And I think we need to be a little bit more nuanced than that and recognize, you know, you mentioned Arsenal, good team, very good team. And Arsenal better than Liverpool? I mean, man for man, looking at their squad, probably not on paper. They are this year in terms of performances, but probably not on paper. The difference is, as was suggested this last year, you know, Liverpool are heavy metal football, right? The way they attack is very fierce, it's very direct, it's overwhelming. Whereas Arsenal are going to lull you, right? They've got the whole Barcelona thing going on right now. So it's a little bit more nuanced than that. So when we're looking at these next couple of games, I don't think we can say, oh, well, those teams aren't Arsenal, Liverpool, therefore we should be spanking them, or, you know, even just getting the win. It's going to come down to, again, to Cooper getting it right in terms of team selection. And again, to your point, like the Liverpool game, getting the tactics right. I think not having Tony in the Brentford game is going to be huge. He's an absolute fulcrum for them. So having him, you know, be absent is great. Not good for me. He was in my fantasy league team, but that's okay. I'll take the hit for Forest. So as far as the Tottenham game is concerned, and a lot of people are not going to be happy to hear me say this, I wouldn't even give it the time of day. I just wouldn't. Like, I don't feel Forest are equipped for a cup run right now. I think it's the least of our priorities. I'm not saying roll over. You know, and other fans will say, well, no, you've got to take it seriously. This is another opportunity to gel this group of players. But it's just hard for me to prioritize that over the league. I mean, what are your thoughts? Do you think the Tottenham game's important?
I see your point. First of all, you know, I totally accept that. I am somebody who generally believes that go into every game and try and win it. You know, I grew up late in the Brian Clough era when he sent teams to Australia for 6-a-side tournaments.
I remember.
Which included Stuart Pearce, Des Walker, Steve Hodge, Steve Sutton, the best team we could possibly send. And they brought the trophy home because Cloughy wanted to win everything. And I'm of this mindset, when you play your best team every week and they start winning. But the problem is, at the moment, they're not winning, are they? You know, and so it's hard when you're not winning. You know, confidence drains, and sometimes you just need something a little bit different. What I'd probably do is make a few changes. You know, take it seriously. But and again, I'm not a big. If we was in good form, I'd love us to go into this League Cup game and play the same team. You know, with the same consistency. It's what Cooper tends to do when he did it last year.
I agree.
Whatever opportunity he could, he'd play the same team. And I'm someone of that. When you see teams, I always look at Germany and Brazil, when they're going into World Cups, they'll go and beat Saudi Arabia 10-0 with the strongest possible team because of what it does for gelling, confidence, going into tournaments with a win and things like that. So yeah.
Well, let me play devil's advocate for a second then. One of the issues Cooper's had this season is not so much the ability to play a settled team, it's the ability to play the best players, right? Because we've had several key players missing from the back line, and Gala's been out for a stretch of time. I mean, that's been the issue. It's not been a plethora of absences. It's been the specific players we've been missing. So what happens if you go into the Tottenham game and then you pick up another couple of injuries and suddenly you lose Yates and you lose McKenna?
No, and that's why I say perhaps if somebody, we saw it in the cup last year. I think it was I think McKenna was carrying a knock against Liverpool. He might have played. I might be wrong. So whoever it was, there was somebody in the team who was carrying a knock. It was McKenna because Figueiredo played with Worrell.
That's right.
So if there's anybody carrying a knock or not 100% fit, pull them out, give them a break. If there's someone like McKenna who's played every game, every minute of every game, perhaps you take him out. There's a lot of players sat on the bench who are not playing.
Agreed.
And I think of the likes of Brian Coney and players like that, and Bolly. So it's a chance for them to come in and just have a feel for what Cooper expects of a team again, just in case that they're called upon. So yeah, whilst I'd normally go full steam ahead, I think with this one, caution is the way forward. Out of all of them, if I could pick results now, that would be the one where you're at the League Cup. We're normally at the League Cup by now anyway. So
shouldn't even put the ball in the bag, really, should they?
No, we've normally been beat by Macclesfield or somebody.
Oh, the memories.
It's not that important, but no. I, my personal opinion is if we can get 3-4 points from the next 2 league games, I think that'll keep us in touch. It'll keep us fully in touch with what's going on, and then you come back. And I've said it right from day one, right from when we realised how the fixtures were going to pan out. There'll be teams that go into this break struggling, that come out of it absolutely flying. And there'll be teams that go into it flying who come out of it and have an absolute stinker. Yeah. And I'm just hoping in many ways, of course I'm hoping, it goes without saying because I want Forest to win every week, but I'm just hoping Forest are one of those teams that can just pick up. The window opens again. God forbid we're hearing rumours of another 100 million being spent. But get 2 or 3 solid additions, Cooper signings, hopefully. I don't care what the others want or who they want. I trust him that much. And let's just kick on from there. And that'd be a positive sort of end to the first half of the season for me. And then, of course, we come back against Man U and Chelsea.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, agreed. So you mentioned the great one there, Brian Clough. I got to ask you before we wrap up, you and Dore, who's Cloughy, who's Taylor?
Well, weren't Taylor the brains?
You're angling, aren't you? You're angling. Fair enough. We'll leave it there. We'll leave it
at that. No, I appreciate you coming on, Mark, and get back to your sunny Colorado.
I will do, folks. I will do. Yeah. And for those who are interested, I moderate. Is moderate the right word? I don't know. I run the account Forest Fancast, which I know a lot of the folks on Twitter follow and interact with me on there. So I really appreciate that. So if you want to give us a follow, that'd be great. And so got to keep following the Reds this season out here in the States and hoping to get back to the UK soon. I'm actually going to be back over Christmas. So I'm going to see if I can maybe catch something around the Christmas period, although the game I'm most likely to catch would be Boxing Day. And of course, they're away in Manchester that day. So although I know that game just got moved, didn't it? So I don't know if that's going to work out or not. But certainly following the Reds from afar, early hours in the morning, and really appreciate you having me on, and say hi to Dore for me.
I definitely will. And if you're back, give us a shout and we'll catch up around the game.
Sounds good.
But of course, everyone give Mark a follow. Dore didn't inform me that you had something to follow, so I'll look it up as well. And definitely some great points you made there, and great to get the show underway in that fashion.
Appreciate it, mate. You take care of yourself.
Cheers, Mark. Thank you.
See ya. Cheers.
Great chat there from Mark. Really appreciate him coming on. Fantastic guest coming from Colorado, and of course he's passionate about the Reds as well, and he's very knowledgeable about what's what in the current situation. Just to get back to some of these comments, pick up where we left off before. I'm not quite sure about this one. Maybe we should sign Macaulay Longstaff. He's a goal machine, same number of goals as Haaland. Yeah, in the National League, not the Premier League. Thomas says Steve Cooper is Super Cooper. No matter the game, we have to stick with him for a little while, especially as he got us to the Premier League after all. My thoughts exactly. Interesting comment here from Paul. He says, "Blimey, what's that you're drinking out of? If you're short of drinking glasses in the Oldham household, Des, I'll bring you on a Saturday. It's ace time." I've actually just been for I'm not gloating, but I'm going to bore you with it because you asked the question. I've just been for a 7-mile run and I'm absolutely knackered. And then I'm straight on this. So I've been with Glenn, who's a friend of DoreOnTour. So we had a great run around Nottingham. Of course, he hadn't lived here for a while, so I was showing him some of the sights around the city centre. But it's as far as I've run for a long time. So I need as much juice as I can get to get through one of these. And then Paul backed that up with saying he agrees with Des has to play the players he knows will fight. Adam says, "Good evening, Des, and everybody. Evening, Adam. I'm sure we'll speak soon, very soon." Rebel City Red said, "Totally agree with Surridge. Very disappointed he hasn't had any real game time considering our lack of goals." Surridge is an interesting one, isn't it? Because last week we was trying to find the positives in a 1-1. We was looking at that performance against Liverpool and saying there's perhaps something there. I do feel he's an handful, but Mark made the point. He's not quite sure it's sticking, and I'm not sure it's sticking. What he is doing when he's facing goal is giving defenders a bit of a torrid time. The problem is we're not getting the ball in front of him to give defenders a torrid time enough. We saw that goal against Liverpool where he earned the free kick. He can be a handful, but again, I think Surridge, the ball will probably just stick that little bit better. I don't think that's necessarily his game, just because he's a big man and he's somebody who can stick it away. But I think he's worth a shout. The way he finishes, one chance sometimes all he needs, and that's all we're getting at times. So some of those where they've been scuffed, where Lingard had one at the weekend, where he almost rolled it back to the keeper. You'd fancy Surridge to stick those away. So just a presence on the pitch, would be something. Peter the Irish guy showing his support for Steve Cooper again. This guy, not sure who he is. Don't forget to call the show. Link is at the top. Never heard of him. Probably sleeping but by now anyway. A couple more before we get the next guest in. Here's one. Anarchy says, "The signs are clear. Cooper don't have a clue." Paul says, "I see you hydrating." I have to keep my head above the parapet from all the abuse that we was getting as happy clappers on Sunday. I'm not letting that one drop, so I'm going to speak about that throughout. And we should wait to see what happens next 2 games before we become too depressed. Great point. That's what I've been saying. Really think that's the way forward, And what's the point now anyway? What's the point? Getting a bit impatient, getting a bit ahead of herself again. They've just given him a contract, for God's sake. I don't necessarily think that's going to keep him in a job forever, but I don't think they're going to sack him after we picked up when he signed the contract and then we've lost a game against the team at the top of the league. So keep the comments coming in. People coming in all the time. I'm sure the football's finishing. If anybody's got any football scores, please drop those in the comments. I was following a few games before duty called. But I'm going to get this guy in. Ryan Yates isn't the problem. Is that your official name?
Absolutely.
No, it's not. It's Kieran. Evening, Kieran. You all right?
I'm not bad, Des. How are you, mate?
I'm good. What is it you want to talk about and dial in with Des tonight?
Just, I think with fans at the minute, I think that you can see they're a bit impatient. They try and find a few excuses, saying this player's the problem, that player's the problem. That's not the case, really. I think it's just about sometimes Cooper not being proactive enough. Like when we go 1-0 down, we seem to cave in. I think there's just a lot more problems than just blaming players at the moment, and that's what my point is, really.
So you say Cooper's not proactive enough. So are you getting a little? And I'm not trying to be controversial.
I'm not saying he shouldn't be sacked. I think Cooper's got a lot to learn, but I think sometimes, especially the Leicester game, didn't really change anything when we were 3-0 down until half time. But I think that's more the problem sometimes, not all the time.
Here's one for you, Kieran. Do you think he's happy with the personnel?
No. I could tell by his interview after the Arsenal game, didn't seem himself. Apparently, we're having personal conversations, he said. I think that was his quote. Didn't seem himself there. So something's not right.
No, I watch him a lot. I'm a bit of a people watcher anyway. The things I do daily and all that kind of thing. I try and get a feel for what people are thinking and what they and during games, I've got a habit of watching. I was watching Marinakis on Sunday because you could see him all the way across the other side of the ground. And I tend to watch his reaction. And Cooper, he wears his heart on his sleeve. You know if he likes somebody. If he's keen on somebody or not. It's like you can't help it. And I just get the feeling right now, like last season, I made the comment a lot about Zinchenko. He didn't seem, whilst he kept picking him, whilst he kept playing him, and Zinchenko was a good player, I'm not saying he didn't warrant a place. He said a lot in interviews, he was frustrated with Phil. He was frustrated with Phil. And that was his diplomatic way. On the pitch, he's like this, like, pulling his hair out, and you tend to see that a lot more. Of course, it's not going so well. It's going to happen. But a guy who wears his heart on his sleeve and then he comes out and sort of questions that commitment. It's really interesting that he's done that, because again, you saw one or two changes in the team, and why? I wonder why that's happening. Why was Loddy back in the team? I don't want to create a witch hunt. I don't rate him. I've not seen anything from him going forward. I've seen him play massively out of position going backwards. Every goal on Sunday went down his side, apart from when he wasn't on the pitch for the last one. And whilst I'm not blaming him for the goals, because he couldn't impact them because he was too far away, the positioning was the problem. I just don't see what he brings to the team, and there's other players, who the fans like Mangala, they like O'Brien. At times I can see where he's coming from and not picking them. We don't even know if Mangala's really that fit, do we? So it must
not at the moment.
It must be a real difficult job to sort of understanding who's in this best 11. We were talking about this 4 or 5 weeks ago, after during one of these episodes of Dialing with Des, and it's getting to this first 11, isn't it? I asked Mark the question, would you do wholesale changes? He said no, because that's the problem. And I agree with him on that. I was playing devil's advocate myself, but I'll ask you the same question. Where do you think and who do you think sort of needs changing to get some stability? I hinted at a couple of weeks ago, I do some work for Pitch Football where they asked me to put out a lineup every week, on Twitter and Instagram. And it's really, really hard, and it doesn't mean anything to me, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to get abused on Twitter regardless. But even when you just sat there writing down a starting 11, you think, wow, is he good enough to play, or is he, So I'm asking you, as somebody who has to do that every week for a bit of fun, what's your opinions on lineups? Who comes in? Where do we go in these next 2 games?
It's like really, really hard to even think who the best team is, because the only person that knows that is Cooper. But then we do have doubts of why is this player starting, why is that player not starting. It's just 21 players. It's just ridiculous. But you're hoping in January, even if we do get some money to spend, it's got to be Cooper signings. That's why they got rid of this recruitment team, because they were the main reason to why we brought all these players in. Not all of them. I think most of them were Coopers, like Gibbs White and probably Lingard, I would have thought. But with the lineups, it's just so hard to predict who and what your best starting 11 is.
Where do you think, and I've got my opinions on this, and I'll answer it straight after. Where do you think Forest's biggest problem lies in terms of which position on the field? Not single position. Is it the defenders? Is it the strikers? Is it the midfield?
It's a good question. I think it's... You've put me on the spot here. Probably the defence.
I agree. And the reason I asked that question is because you can make a case for any of them. You know, you could look at the strikers and go, they've been pathetic. I don't think the strikers are getting enough of the football to be pathetic. No. You know,
I feel sorry for Wangi sometimes. He doesn't get enough of the ball, like you've said before. I
saw in the Liverpool game especially, I saw the midfield play really well. You know, you probably heard me question for you, but I thought he had a cracking game. But I don't think he brings much more than Ryan Yates brings to the team, apart from the fact he doesn't tackle and get his shorts dirty. He just looks pleasing on the eye. Again, people will disagree with me and think I'm talking rubbish. But then when you look at the back line, that's where I feel we're really lacking, isn't it? Do you know, Aurora's come in and he's doing a job. You know, he gives the ball away a little bit too much sometimes, and I think that's become Nico's problem as well. You know, just giving the ball away, do things well. Nico's a bit more attacking minded and gets forward, but Aurora has come in and done a steady job. But
I think Aurora has been really good since he's come in.
He has, and what you see is just that he's not deemed good enough for a top Premiership team these days, but you can see that Premiership experience shining through. And I think, you know, we all love Cook and McKenna, but I don't think they're agile enough, they're mobile enough. And I think the team's missing Niakate. You know, I don't know
massively. We miss Niakate so bad.
I don't know what the situation is. And the thing is, we say we're missing him. We didn't see enough of him to really be genuinely of that sort of opinion. But from what we did see, it was better than what we've got at the moment. And I just feel in January that this is where we really need to look at things and take it forward. Because somehow they've got to find the confidence in the defence to get it up the pitch. You know, you will always, in the Premier League, you will always concede chances. You know, you see it in the big, I mentioned the big teams again, you know, when they play each other. Liverpool are getting run all over at the back of them, all over the place at the back when they lose the football, because in midfield, they're not good enough. You know, so if they're not getting the ball to Salah and the strikers, it's not going very well. So I think somehow we've got to find the confidence to get that defence up the pitch. That would then allow the midfield and the strikers and the forward-thinking players to thrive. And I just think whilst we're conceding, whilst we're in this predicament, it's going to be really, really hard. Firstly, to attract players, but also to get more from what we've got at the moment.
It's got to be someone that Cooper wants as well. But yeah, I think centre half is a must in January. I know we've got all these centre halves that have not been playing, but it's the main target in January.
But there's a comment here, and I find these really interesting because I've been told good things as well about this. Darryl says Loic Bardet needs a try. Do you know what? I'm kind of that opinion, but do you know if he's not been tried, we've seen it for years with Panzo and Mbisso. Does the manager even trust them to put them in ahead of what we've got? And it's easy to say these people need, and I am of that opinion. I'm playing devil's advocate here. Give them a try. You never know. Sometimes it just works out in football. But if the manager really thinks they're not good enough, you know, then they're not ever going to play, are they? If he's picking the team, it's like at the moment with Dennis, isn't it? He's barely getting any game time. I don't think he deserves it, in all honesty. I've not seen enough. Again, I'm not seeing him in training. I'm not questioning his attitude or anything like that. I've just, from what I've seen, I've not seen enough from him. He got that goal against Villa, so that's a massive plus point. But other than that, like Lingard, like Morgan Gibbs-White, he's not creating chances. He's not scoring chances. So again, until we can start sorting some of the other positions out, I feel the strikers are just a little bit on that to dry. Are you of the same opinion?
Yeah, definitely. I do feel sorry for Surridge though, because I think he's been one of the best finishers in the last 23 years after what he did last season. But I do feel sorry for him. I think he should get a bit more game time, but still don't think the striker is the problem. It's more the centre half, like we've said. But yeah, we'll see what happens in the next couple of games and see where we are.
Well, okay, mate. I appreciate. Just one last thing. What's the reasoning behind Ryan Yates isn't the problem? I'll just let you have your say.
Well, we've seen in the last 6 games he's been the standout performer, like putting tackles and just leading by example. That's the kind of captain you want at Forest, and he's led by example. I don't know how people can say he's not good enough. There's not enough evidence to really think that he's not good enough. He's been good enough, and he's been one of Forest's standout performers in the last 6 games.
No, I totally agree, and I was hoping you'd say something like that. I thought against Liverpool, that was one of the best that was his best performance for Forest. That was his best performance, and that was up there with some of the best performances I've seen as a midfielder. With what he had to do, the amount of work he had to go through. Unfortunately, against Arsenal, he wasn't so good. They had some really good players. I was really, really impressed with Odegaard. I thought he was a phenomenal player, and he was so he was trying to deal with Odegaard. This is what some fans won't understand when they're having a go at him and his court-out position. For me, the biggest problem on Sunday was Ryan Yates was trying to deal with Odegaard, but he was also having a personal battle with Xhaka, and there was a couple of occasions where he was trying to rough him up a bit. We all know Xhaka's got a bit of short temper, so perhaps it was a tactic of steaming into him and pushing him and things like that. But I thought that was a little bit unfair on Yates if he's the one having to almost deal with 2 men there, because nobody else in that midfield was dealing with anyone. And for all Kouyaté played well the week before, again, he had a very poor game where he gave the ball away so much more. So I think it's really harsh, and I'm definitely with you in that sense. He's come back fit, and he's looking like a brilliant captain at the moment. We're sinking ship right now, and we need somebody to sort of come to the fore. And I think Yates has been the bright spark.
Yes, if it wasn't for him against Brighton, we would have lost that game with how we performed that game. And I think with some fans, they were all quiet last week when we beat Liverpool, and then as soon as we go and lose to Arsenal, they're all coming back out of the bandwagon. It's just, I think some people just try and make him an easy target. That's my point.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for coming in, Kieran. Really appreciate your support as ever through DoreOnTour, through Do Daily. Keep watching, and I'm sure we'll speak again soon.
Absolutely, Des. Pleasure.
Cheers, Kieran. That was Kieran. Been on before. He's got some great points again. Massive Ryan Yates fan, as you can tell there. Absolutely loves him. And like I say, I tend to agree with him. I think Yates has been a bright spark in all the bad things that have happened recently. So we've definitely got to work. Whilst we can't just work around Ryan Yates, when you're looking at first 11s, there's a question posed here from Frankie. Is our team actually an improvement on last season? Not squad depth, just first 11. I'm inclined to believe it's not. I really am, and at least in terms of performance, whether they're individually they're better, probably, in different teams and doing different things. But I'm inclined to believe that they're not a better team, not a better 11, and that's why I'm kind of clamouring a little bit to get some of these guys back in the team. You know, I get hammered for this because people tell me to move on and get over it. The first thing I do in January is try and get Keenan Davis. You know, we're talking about the ball sticking up front. You know, he's not going to bang goals in. Nobody's going to bang 10, 15 goals in for Forest this season. But we're talking about the ball sticking up front and getting through those lines, getting from the midfield to the front. And last season, you know, Keenan Davis picking up the ball on the halfway, brushing off 4 or 5 players. Imagine him doing that and having Lingard and Morgan Gibbs-White sort of available to work off. He worked well with James Garner last year. And for as much as I love Garner and what he did for us, I think these guys are better footballers. The pedigree's a lot bigger and better. So I think we'd get so much by doing that. And that's the first thing I do in January. You know, we're not going to go out and sign, I was going to say Ronaldo, but he's past it now, isn't it? We're not going to sign Messi. We're not going to sign somebody. We're not going to sign an Haaland. We might get a Macaulay Langstaff, but I'm not sure he's going to be the answer either. But a Keenan Davis, you know, somebody who we know can add something to the team. That ball will stick and he can bring others into play. Seeing him do that single-handedly in games. I think back last season to the Millwall game away where we weren't in the game for 40 minutes. He had half an hour where he changed everything. Tired, other players come on when we were on top and we won the game. I think of the Sheffield United game when he wasn't even fit and we ran out of steam in that second half, and it wasn't until Davis come on and made a real difference. So yeah, in that sort of on that point there of is the team actually an improvement on last season? I don't think it is as a team. I think the individuals are better. I think the pedigree's there, but it's just not working out, is it? Another interesting point followed that. Do we know for sure who's picking the starting 11? I think I'm not going to go down that road because it's a dicey road to go down. But we never know in football these days, do we? You know, chairman owners put a lot of money in. You know, and I'm sure if they're not picking the team, they'll suggest things. You know, if you was putting a lot of money towards something, you would. I think as football fans, we never accept that. We'd never accept that happens. But of course, it happens. You know, there was a time at Chelsea when Roman Abramovich was the best thing since sliced bread, and he didn't want Michael Ballack and Andrei Shevchenko, but Abramovich told him he had to have him. So it does happen. We know it happens. I'm sure at every club it happens. But I don't, like say it at Forest, I don't really want to get down that road because it's just going to open so many cans of worms. Comment here from Mark. Lingard and Laguerre are arguably the 2 biggest names in the squad and also the 2 biggest disappointments of the season so far. I don't think anybody can really disagree with that, can they? I think because when we see little shoots from them, it gets us excited. It almost feels like we're turning a corner, but we just haven't seen it enough, especially from Lingard. Lodi, you know, I've not seen him play particularly well, but Lingard's the match winner, the guy who we're paying the big bucks to. You know, we've heard the figures, not necessarily true, but we know it's big bucks, and we'd probably want a little bit more from him. Paul says, one of the problems for me is the front players cannot keep the ball, meaning that the defence is always under pressure. Again, I asked Kieran the question, where's the biggest problem? And we tend to go with the defence because of the pressure it puts on the strikers. Paul sees it from a different perspective. And again, I made that point about Keenan Davis. I think if we had players like that who could hold on the ball, even Zinchenko, you know, I wasn't a massive fan of his. I always thought he held the ball too long. But what a thing that would be for Forest now, someone holding the ball for a bit longer than they should. It's like a hot potato at times at the moment, and players just haven't got the confidence to let it stick with them. Ben says, Nico are strongest wing-backs in my opinion. I don't disagree with that. I think they both do a really good job. Frankie says, I think we need 4 points from Brentford and Palace minimum. I think if we got that, we'd all take that now, wouldn't we? Drop in the comments how many points do you think we'll get? You know, realistically, I'd love to know what people's opinions are and how they see these next 2 games going. Paul's back in. If we do have money to spend in January, focus on a proven Premier League quality above quantity. Centre half and centre forward a priority. Absolutely. But like I said there, Paul, I totally agree on your point, but it's going to be hard to get real quality players in. The predicament we're going to find ourselves in, it's going to be really difficult. Darryl says pace on the wings, Dennis, Jono, and Awoniyi up front. A bit of pace will change things. I can't see Jono being out the team too long. I know he's had his stick and his doubters, but I can't see it being too long. Interesting one here. Will Omar Richards ever be available? We don't know. Nobody knows what's happening there. Colin agrees with me. Absolutely does. Get Davis back. VB said the team is far better than last year. Our competition is just way above the championship. Of course, we agree with that. I don't think anybody disagrees. It's just as a team, I think they performed a lot better, and they performed above their level last year. And what we need now is players to perform above their level. Michael says one thing that's proved in the last 2 games, we're not better without Benton starting. And again, I've just made that point. I tend to agree. I'm a massive fan. I think the boys got talent, and I think you don't waste it sometimes. I was hoping on Sunday that we'd hold out to about 55 minutes, at 1-0 after conceding that early goal, and then we'd get him on and he'd just do something that sets his season alight. That sets our season alight, but sets his alight too. And that's how he is, isn't he? He's a confidence player. So when he gets in the game, and he worked without having a great game at Brighton. He worked his socks off, and that's one of the criticisms been labelled at him. So I think it won't be too long before he's back. Keep your comments coming. It's a hard one after a 5-0 defeat. It always seems to be hard on dialing with Des, especially when Dore's dishing out the graveyard shift, as he always does. I've not seen or heard much of him in the comments either, so he's probably not even watching himself. But no, keep watching, guys. Keep giving it that thumbs up. Please do subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to my channel as well. Do daily. Spelt like it is on the screen there. If you're searching in YouTube, it has to be that way. Otherwise, you won't find it. Going to get another guest in. Somebody who's familiar to the show. Evening, Adam. You okay?
I'm not bad, thanks, Des. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Trying to sort of pick the bones out of a 5-0 is on a Tuesday. He's not the one.
Spurs have just nicked against Marseille in stoppage time. Sorry to interrupt.
So I wanted some football scores.
Yeah, Højbjerg's just scored the winning goal. They did it at the crossbar not long ago, but before that, what's the Greek? The ex-centre half who's played for Arsenal, the Greek centre half. He should have buried it before that, but yeah, but it was Spurs. It's Højbjerg's just has won it for him now. So yeah.
And in other breaking news, Dore's awake.
Anyway,
what do you want to talk about, mate? What's the burning issue in your mind?
At the minute, I think it's just something clearly going wrong at the moment. I'm not talking about performance. I think behind closed doors, and that's why Marinakis sat, who was in charge of the recruitment and everything at the time. They had a big part to play, when it came to the signings coming in the summer, and I normally agree with what Kieran says a lot, but I think with Jesse Lingard, I think he was not one of Cooper's signings, personally, myself. And I think he needs that, like what Dore was saying last night and what the guest was saying last night. He does need more of that service because that's the type of player he is. If he hasn't got much of that ball, he's not going to do much with it. As simple as that. But I think the biggest issue at the minute is the defence, as like what Kieran says and what you agreed on, because we've definitely missed Niakate, that big strong unit at centre half. Because for me, if Ryan Yates is not going to be captain, then Niakate deserves to be captain all day long. So, I think at the minute what's going on, we just need to, for me, McKenna and Cook, they're just not quick enough for this league. I'm taking nothing away from them two. There was a massive factor at the back who got us up last season, without a shadow of a doubt. And Steve Cook was a bit like our Rolls Royce. But for me, at the minute, we need to give players like Baddy a chance. Give people like Bianconi a chance, because not only Bianconi can play at fullback, which is not really needed at the minute because of the form of Nico Williams and Aurier. He can even play he can play at centre back as well. So I think, give players like Baddy or Bianconi a chance, because I watched him pre-season. They look a bit more pacey than McKenna and Cook. Not much more pacey, but a bit more. So it can, for me, it could make that difference for us this season. So it might need to try and tweak a little bit at those two centre-half positions between Cook and McKenna, in my opinion. But it's Cooper, and so far he's been sticking to his guns. But I think he just needs to tweak it a little bit in the centre-halves, in my opinion.
It's an interesting thought, mate, because there's a lot of centre-backs at the club, isn't there? There was a lot of players brought in and players with reputations. I heard a lot about Bianconi that he's got a big reputation amongst Premier League managers already. I think it was Daniel Taylor who wrote that in the Athletic, or Paul Taylor, whichever one, that lots of managers were looking at him and thought Forest had got a bit of a steal at 5 million. So it's interesting to sort of see that he's not played a massive amount of games. It seems like I don't want to disrespect him when I say this. He's like the club man now, isn't he? He's the new Cafu. The guy who's jumping up and down on the bench and his social media, and he loves the club. And we grow to love these players, and it'll just be nice to see, whether he's deemed good enough to play against the likes of Brentford or Palace or whoever. It'd be nice to be able to make our minds up on it. I said it earlier in the show that it suggests that Cooper doesn't fancy these players. That's football. That's the way it is. People these days sign players, and of course the recruitment team got the sack, so someone else thinks that they signed the wrong players. I'm not saying Bianconi is such, but there's other players who've come in and not played. Made the point all summer about signings. I thought Forest would sign the loan players. I thought we'd sign most of them, and I thought we'd sign 3 or 4 real quality additions. I spoke a lot in the summer. When I'm talking quality additions, I thought someone like Sander Berg, who was in my mind, was a realistic target, would have cost a lot of money. And when I say a lot of money, I was talking 30 million. Apparently, we was prepared, even though we probably won't now, to spend that on Loddy. And we spent that on Morgan Gibbs-White and other people. So if we'd have got Gibbs-White and someone like Berg, who's a unit in midfield, and perhaps a massive centre half.
He's a tall player. Sander Berg is as well. Let's not forget, And him and Yates in midfield, because they both play similar positions, would have been a right unit together.
The reason I made that point, mate, is because all I was saying all the time is sign better than what we've got. Don't go spending, because it's always been Forest's way. Normally, these players are probably better than the ones we've had before, Dumitru and Silva and whoever. Who was the guy who went to Olympiacos, a striker who scored about 2 goals, and then we never saw him again. It was almost like they was on holiday. And some of these guys now, we're in the Premier League. We're supposed to be a professional outfit. It's going down the same road. We need to sign better players. If we're going to spend 100 million, I won't. It's not my problem. Of course, we put money in, so ultimately it is part of our problem, as fans. But we can't control it. So if you're going to spend 100 million, let them do it. But for me, just go and sign 3 £35 million players, because we have spent a lot of money, but we've underspent when you look at other teams. I look at Everton. That guy in midfield, is his name, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Uno or something like that.
An honour, isn't it?
No, he cost 37 million, I believe. He's 21, but
Yeah.
that's obviously the going rate. You know, they were talking on Sky that he might have a resale value because he's young. They were talking about this exact
Yeah, there was.
thing.
Yeah, remember that.
When Everton played Fulham, they were talking about signing players and then them just leaving out the back door for nothing. And I think what Forest have to do is sign players. We've probably gone in at 16, 17 million for most of them, and it's not enough. You know,
No,
it
it's
seems
not,
a
no.
lot. It seemed a lot. It seemed unrealistic in the summer. But right now, signing players for 15, 17 million is proving that they're not caught at that level. I mentioned Everton. They're not pulling up any trees,
No.
but they've got a top striker. You know, they've got some good defenders, and they've got this guy in midfield, and they've got one or two other players who aren't really that good, and they're holding their own. You know,
Yeah.
and that's all they're doing, and they're spending 30, 40, 50 million in the last couple of years. And I just think if we're going to spend ridiculous amount of money again, it's got to be 35 million. Everyone was almost in tears when we signed Morgan Gibbs-White, but we're going to have to spend this money. This is the going rate. You know, the going rate is not 17 million for one year. You know, it's not 10 million on a left back that's never going to play. And what we probably got him for 10 million because someone knew he was never going to play. You know, and Niakate and Mangala, you know, it seems like he's got hamstrings like plasticine.
Yeah.
And this is what's worrying me at the moment. I just feel that we need to sort of get a bit realistic on what comes in. And I'm seeing the comments there. I'm making the point and people are backing me up. Quality over quantity.
I was about to say that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because the last thing we need is another 10, 12 players. And then we've signed 33 players in the season.
Exactly.
And we can't even
utilised it. And
can't even hit on our first team as it is, you know. So I just think it's a massive. These next two games are obviously going to say a lot about where we're at going into the World Cup. The World Cup, everything's going to go quiet, and then I think January is going to be huge. Coming out of that Christmas, coming out of that sort of World Cup break into Christmas, you know, a lot of games in a short space of time. There's 3 games in a week, just over a week. Maybe, just over a week, I think. So you've got 2 games that we need points from. If we don't take points out of these next 2 games, then we go into 3 games in a week. And then all of a sudden, that's 5 games down the line.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that's 1/7 of a Premier League season.
Crazy if you think about it, isn't it?
Well, we'll be halfway through. I think the Southampton game will be, I might be wrong. It might have been if we'd played Leeds, we're halfway. Oh, pardon. I think the Southampton game will be halfway. And then if you've not taken much out of these next 5, we've got massive issues. And again, attracting that quality becomes even more difficult.
Exactly. And I think with that being said, like, you know, you go back to, you know, the loan players we should have signed. Personally, we should have. Okay, we could have got Spence, but obviously Spence wanted Champions League football. He wanted to go to Spurs because it's more near his backyard. But you know, we should have got loan players in like Keenan Davis, James Garner. You know that. You know, if they did that well last season, they've got to learn to take a step up to the Premier League. You know, I know they were on loan from Premier League sides, but they're barely playing in the Premier League football anyway until they started playing for us in the Championship. But the players like them, Keenan Davis and James Garner, especially those two, you know, we should have got them. You know, and there's no some maybes about it because we've seen teams. You know, when we've been at the Premier League for so many years, we've seen teams over the years have gone up to the Premier League and have had players who have had successful loan spells at the club and they're given permanent contracts when they get to the Premier League because they know how good they really are. And, you know, we should have done that. And it's just a damn shame that, you know, recruitment felt otherwise. But I know we got to, you know, recover for most of the players we lost last season. I get that. But at the end of the day, it's quality over quantity any day of the week. And
absolutely, mate. There's a point here. Forget those loan players, Des. It's over. They ain't coming back. I don't think I actually went on about many of them. I just mentioned Davis. The only one I would take now is Davis. The others have gone. You're right. But the point I made was I thought Forest would sign them, and we'd sign some additions on top, and not go and sign players that have never been tried in the Premier League, which was the point I was getting to. There's also a point here from Big Mark. Newcastle showed us the way. They signed Trippier and Bruno and turned the season around. They also had about £450 squillion to go and do that, you know. And
now I've heard that Bruno's been linked to Barcelona.
I'm not surprised because he's an absolutely
he's their best player at the minute by far. He's one
of the best players in the Premier League.
Absolutely, 100%.
There's a question here which I've kind of been asking all the way through. Mark says, "What will be said if Forest win the next 2 games?" You tell us, Mark. Do you know what will be said?
Well, put it this way, Des. If we win the next game, we'll beat Derby's record at least anyway.
You know what I said on Saturday as well, and people might laugh at me, but if you look at the table and the fixtures, if we win the next 2 games, we'll probably be out the relegation zone.
Yeah, exactly. It just depends on how the results go.
And that's how big 3 points is in the Premier League. You know, we happen to get our 3 points, and unfortunately, other teams at the bottom went and got their 3 points at the same time. You know, Villa.
Exactly. And I think with the defense, you know, we're going back to the defense again. You know, the defense is the biggest thing we need to work on in January, because look at our goal difference now, -20. You know, if we keep getting level on points with these teams just above us, that goal difference is the big thing at the minute. So we need to try and get our defense more solid, and perhaps bring in a couple of centre halves in January. If people don't want to do that, then start utilising like Baddy and Bianconi.
Well,
give them a chance and see how they get on.
On that point, I want to go back to a comment. I'd not forgotten about it. I wanted to get it in somewhere, and I think this is the perfect opportunity. To press or not press is the question for Forest, in my opinion. Don't like the passive approach we have to get in faces like we did against Liverpool. And the reason I put this in is because of the point you just made about goals and conceding and things like that. You know, I totally agree with Paul on this. It's almost like we've got a core of a squad that play this pressing game of football, and then all of a sudden they're being asked to defend, and it's become a little bit unnatural again. I can see the reasons why they're being asked to defend, because they're conceding left, right, and centre. But it's almost like we caught between a rock and a hard place. You know, against Liverpool, we got in the faces a bit more. We got up the pitch. Second half against Brighton, something happened with Brennan where he closed someone down in the first half, and things started to change. You know, so I'd love to see us adopt that, but I understand the problems it causes at the back. But again, with quicker defenders, I think that this might help that problem. You look back when we were pressing Spurs, and I think O'Brien gave the ball away in midfield, or it unfortunately ricocheted off him. And before you knew it, Kane was putting one in the bottom corner. And I think that's the problem when you press teams so high, is the Premier League's that quick. And if you're not that quick to react, or as quick to react, you're going to be conceding goals. So I'd love to see more of that. I thought the Spurs game was one of our better performances this season. You know, but we have to find that balance, don't we? And at the moment, I don't think we've got the personnel.
No, we need to start taking chances more as well. And okay, Liverpool, we know, if we want because of Alisson, maybe we would have got more. And obviously, Brennan Johnson was unlucky to hit the post from that angle anyway. He just had to go for it because it was seconds before the game was finishing. But we've got to, like you said, Des, I completely agree with you. We've got to have that healthy balance now, and we've got to get in people's faces, especially the teams that you'd expect to lose to. And if we do that,
Paul's just made another comment which I think backs up what you're saying. When you're not as good as other teams, you have to make up some of the difference with sheer physical effort. Look how Wimbledon stayed in the league, operating like that. Absolutely, and I've watched Republic of Ireland teams who are not very good get results in big games. And I watched Forest last week against Liverpool get a result. been raving about Ryan Yates and the performance and how compact and tight they were.
Yeah.
You know, but again, that's playing a style of football that's not exactly what we want, but they find a way to do it, and they really did get in the faces. And I think I'll let you sort of carry on that. I think that's the point you was getting to, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was absolutely, and you know what? It's that you know, the pedigree we've got to have now, and you know, after the World Cup, you know, this is where it's going to be more serious now, and you know, going back to the goal difference, we've got to, like I said, we've got to, even if we're winning by 1 or 2 goals every game, you know, it's not, you know, chance, you know, it's not probably going to be every game, but most games, at least we're getting that goal difference down, and you know, and that could be a massive difference, because if teams start losing above us and their goal difference is going down to the minus even more, then that could be the biggest difference between us and you know, them or one of those staying up this season. So it's just getting that balance now, and January is absolutely vital when it comes to the transfer market. And we just some of these players who we brought in the summer, like there's some of them not even played. If Cooper don't really want him, it just depends on what many years have got on the contract. I know Buddy is only on loan anyway, but you know, as much as I want to see Buddy have a chance, or you know, the players, some of the players we bought in the summer, especially defence, if you don't want to play him and he wants to bring other players in, then so be it. Then get rid of him. You know, sorry to say, you know, there's no disrespect to him, but if Cooper don't want that, you know, as long as he's thinking, okay, I want to get somebody else in who I know quite well, who I know would pull the defence together and can show some quality. It doesn't have to be, you know, it don't have to be Tomori from AC Milan, or, you know, Tomori, of course, played under Cooper for the England 17s. You know, it doesn't have to be a world-class defender, as long as he's a defender of some Premier League quality, or perhaps a defender who's played in the Premier League before, is now playing abroad.
That's the point really here, and I think this is probably Newcastle, and I can't quite see. Spacebar says you definitely need to buy more Premier League experience in that side. I think that's something we don't doubt, because for me, the players that perform consistently better than the others, apart from Lingard maybe, are the ones, Anderson, Aurora, you know, Cook's up and down, you know, whilst we're talking about defence and things like that, and his ability to get around, you know, he's had some good games. The better performances have come from players that have played in the Premier League before.
And Cook has. But I think with Cook now, I think he's got to that stage, you know, obviously he's not a young player anymore. He's, you know, he's nearly mid-30s. And, you know, he's at that point now where in his career, he's not going to be as quick as he was. He's not going to be physical as he was. I'm taking nothing away from him. He's had some good games this season, but most of them he hasn't. And I like the guy. I've always liked Steve Cook. You know, he's one of those players who's worked his way up in his career. But I think it's getting to a point now, probably at the end of the season, whether if we're going to, which I hope we'll be in the Premier League, I'm pretty sure we will, because I believe in us that we will stay up. But I think it might be a point where, because he is on a short contract anyway, and I think he will be gone next season, regardless of where we will be. So, but
there's an interesting comment, mate, again from the same guy. Use the World Cup break as a second pre-season and drill that defence as much as possible to be tougher to beat. I agree in many ways. Of course, it's all about gelling and this and that, but it's going to be tough again, isn't it? Because half these players are going to be around the world somewhere, or what?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
you know, it just makes it tough. And then there's the players rehabilitating. It's just difficult. So I've asked most of the guys tonight, what's the next 2 games? What happens? How many points? Where do we go from that?
I think obviously we've got the cup game against Spurs in between. If I was us, I wouldn't be bothered. But if we get beat, we get beat. It's Carabao Cup. We got to focus on the Premier League. it's all right saying we can have a good cup run, but if these players get injured, who we need, we've pretty much shot it. So we just need to focus on those 2 games, the Brentford and the Palace. I'd say we definitely get at least 4 points, but I think they are both winnable games. I can't see why we're going to get maximum points because they're both home games anyway. It's not like we're playing at Selhurst Park, because Selhurst Park, as you know, the crowd, the fans are always up for it. The drumming, and they've always had a good set of fans, Crystal Palace. But I think with it being both at the City Ground, and obviously Ivan Toney suspended for Brentford, so okay, I'm not taking nothing away from Brian Woodbrano. I think he's a marvellous player. I think there'll be some teams sniffing around him next season. But personally, I think because he will be suspended, I think we'll win that. And with Palace, they are winnable because Palace are hot and cold at the minute. You don't know what to get from them, under Patrick Vieira. There's had some good games and some bad games. So I think we could get 6 points out of those 2 games, the maximum, but at least 4. I can't see us getting any less than 4 points against those 2 sides. Because I think Crystal Palace's defence, I've seen in games, are not that great at all. They're not strong at the back. It's a bit like us at the moment. And Brentford, their defence their defence hasn't either. So, but with the lack of Ivan Toney playing on Saturday due to suspension, I think we can win that game at least, and perhaps get a draw against Crystal Palace. But I really, to be honest with you, I can't see why we can't get points.
I think Tony's massive, isn't it? Because whilst again one player don't make a team, and they've got lots of good players like you mentioned, and Remo and other players, they've got the guy from Hull as well on the wing, haven't they? But they've not got that focal point, and we know as much as anybody how important a number 9 is. This is why we was praying that Tyro was turning the corner last week. That he was going to be the answer, and while this week again we're perhaps talking about Sam Surridge and other players like that. So I think you're about right. If somebody offered me 3 points from the 2 games now, Adam, I'll be honest with you, I'd take it. If we had that 12 points, yes, it's petty, it's pathetic. It beats that Derby total. That's one tick in the box. And then from there, we've got 3 more points. 3 points is massive. It's going to keep us right in it because nobody can pull away from us from that. And whilst at this stage of the season, I saw a lot of talk that people saying, who do we want to win, Liverpool or Leeds? At this stage of the season, it doesn't matter. Because if Forest don't get the points to stop up, they ain't stopping up. I'm not going to start worrying about other teams. So I think we've got to do our job. We've got to try and win.
Absolutely.
We've got to try and win the winnables. Gary said here, Palace away form is great. They never travel well.
Great. They've always done well at home. They've always been like a fortress at home. But I think try to finish this off as well. I think with the Palace game coming up, if Zaha obviously plays, and you got Odsonne Edouard up front as well, but with Zaha in particular, is by far the best player. We got Sergio Aurier, and for me, I think he'll match him in that game, and I think he'll have him in his back pocket because he's played against him before when Spurs have been playing Crystal Palace, so he knows what he's about. So that's an advantage that we've got. So I'm very optimistic. I can think we can get 6 points out of those 2 games because we're both home games as well. So, but even 3, okay, fine. But 4, I think we'll at least get 4. But for me, I'm really positive we can get 6 points out of that game, out of those 2 games.
Well, that is positivity because I'd love to share the same enthusiasm, and I'm not saying it's unrealistic, but because it's definitely not, it's possible. I'd love to share that optimism. I just at the moment comment here, look, from Kyle, our own form is key to staying up. We knew that from day one. We know that, and these are the games that are going to prove it, aren't they? The points we've picked up apart from the 1 point at Everton, you know, have all been at home. Am I right? I'm not sure whether I'm right, but the wins we've picked up at least. You know, the wins we've got have been at home. So
Both thanks to 1 goals as well.
Exactly. So if we can
get Palace as well, and Palace, there's another positive thing I can say. We normally do really well at home against Crystal Palace as well. Got a good home record against them.
And again, the Newcastle fan backs my point up here. You need to win at least one of them. Stay in touch with those around you. And again, whilst things are tough, that's the minimum we can sort of ask for at the moment. I appreciate you coming on, Adam. Appreciate your thoughts. It's always great to have a chat. I'm sure it won't be too long before we're talking again soon, and hopefully we're talking about those 6 points we get next week.
Yeah, no worries, Des. Hopefully we both might be on Door's review show or something like that as well.
Well, we probably won't, because he dumps us into this sort of dead hour. I'm just kidding. No worries.
That match of the day 2, innit?
Match of the day extra, I think we
are.
Yeah. All right, mate. Cheers.
Cheers.
That was Adam Rego on some great points again. You know, lots of great points from the guys tonight. Really appreciate them coming on. It's hard. It was a hard watch Saturday, isn't it? And it's hard to talk about a 5-0 defeat and find the positives. But in many ways, we have to, don't we? We have to keep getting behind the team, supporting them. I mentioned at the start, and I'm not going to leave without talking about it. You know, the fans having a go at each other on Sunday, what does that achieve? Whether fans are singing songs that are ridiculous or not, I'll be singing even more next time just to prove a point, because I want to get behind the team. I want to find a positive in being in the Premier League. I don't like getting beat. I don't like getting beat 5-0. You know, it's really, really hard. It bothers me. It affects me on the way home and makes me miserable. But we have to try and enjoy the time we've got as well in the Premier League. It might not be that long as it proves, but what difference would we have not got beat 5-0 if we didn't sing ridiculous songs on Sunday? Do you know, as I said there, football songs are cringeworthy most of the time. They don't even make sense. But it's a way of getting behind the team, isn't it, and supporting them. Everybody's got the right to be angry and upset with it. People spend a lot of money, but support your team the way you want to support the team. You know, it's not. It's not for people to ever go at each other about the way they do it. And you know, come on, guys, this is the Premier League. You know, everybody said last year this is one thing that does. Everyone says, "We'll just take it. We just love to go to these grounds." You know, these grounds were never going to be easy, were they? These grounds were going to be tough. It's hard when you watch what happened on Sunday, but when the manager comes out and backs up what some of these fans are saying, who are frustrated and upset and irate, you know, that's okay. That's okay for me, because they're identifying the problem. If the manager comes out and says, no, there's no problem, and we tried and we did this, but all the fans are saying we didn't try, then that's when I'd be frustrated with the club as well. But getting angry and wind up and having to go at each other, and how ridiculous is it to have a go at football fans singing? I thought that's what we did. I thought that's exactly what we did. You know, but of course, you know, it's everybody's right, like I said, to support the team your best. The way you see fit, but don't ever go at others for the way they do it. You know, there's songs that get sung, and I think, oh my God, you know, they're singing that again, they're doing that. But this is just the way it is. I also see a lot of drunk, angry, you know, souls who are shouting things that they'd never shout at somebody if they was in the high street. But that's just the way it is sometimes, isn't it? That makes me embarrassed. But again, I don't need to sort of bring that out and pinpoint people for doing it. I just think it's time that we all kind of pull together again. You know, when the atmosphere is great, the Liverpool game, the games before last season, Wembley, you know, let's not forget Wembley. And it seems a long time ago now. It seems a distant memory almost, but let's not forget it. You know, it was one of the best days of my life. I think it was absolutely fantastic. And there's a comment here, and I was waiting for this. Positivity or naivety. Do you know, in summing up, I'm talking about positivity now. In summing up the game for my pitch footy stuff, the stuff I do on Twitter, check it out. You know, my summaries before and after. I mentioned that Forest were naive. Forest were very naive in that game. players I'd praised in previous weeks were naive for that first goal. So there's no question about that. But we still don't need to get angry. We can make that point without being too fed up. I made the point on Twitter on Sunday that I realised after about 15 minutes when we played Newcastle that this season was going to be a struggle. Like everybody else, I didn't want to admit it. I did say I was worried at the time. I said, this is going to be tough. I said it to my friends. And I kind of got talked out of it. And then I saw a couple of promising performances. And those promising performances, make you start believing. And surely we all want to believe that we can stay up. We all want to believe that we can do well. And that's the point I'm trying to make. I saw that we was probably below our level. But does that stop me wanting us to win? No. So I'm going to do everything I can, the things in my control, to try and support the team the best I can. I just think that was worth talking about. It just, like I say, whatever was sung or not sung, if we stood there silent for 90 minutes and people are already questioning players giving up, at what point would they have given up if we'd not sang a song or we'd not done anything and it had been like a library? Because I tell you what, the Arsenal fans made it like a library, and I'm proud of the Forest fans doing their bit to create some atmosphere in the ground. And again, we're Nottingham Forest, we don't need a drum. So I just think it's important to sort of realise that we are playing in a league that's too good for us. I've put it out there. That's my opinion. We knew it was going to be tough. We knew we was going to get some stuffings. I knew I wasn't going to like it. Sat on a train or sat in a pub afterwards. It's a dampener on a day. But all we can do, if we don't like it, not go. I'll keep going because I'm stupid, and it's probably the only thing in my life I'm quite irrational with. So I think, come on, you Reds. Let's give it a go, boys. The boys were naive at times on Sunday, but I'm sure there's times in all our lives where we've been naive and we've come back from it. And all we can do, football sometimes surprises you. It turns itself on its head. Newcastle last season, yes, they had 50 million squillion to spend and they got out of it. But it's happened before. West Brom, Burnley, teams that somehow have dug themselves out of it with amazing transfer windows or a signing that's just worked out. Last season, Burnley bought Cornet and nearly stayed up. If we show that kind of fight second half on buying one or two players, I think we've got every chance. So like I say, whilst it's been tough, it's been a tough few days to be a Forest fan. It's up and down. It's a roller coaster as well, isn't it? We've seen the Liverpool game can put us right back up here. Hopefully the next two games brings us some points and really gets us on track. Keep mentioning that World Cup break. I'd rather just carry on and see where Forest get. I'm not of this England, not Forest, not England thing. I support England as much as I can as well. But I'd love just to see where this period takes us. And hopefully we can dig ourselves out. Hopefully by supporting the guys, giving it a best against Brentford, get the City ground rocking again. It works. We know it works. That song at the end of the game, it's special now, isn't it? So hopefully on Saturday we can get the win, get behind the boys and give it a real shot. As Dore would say, up the Forest. But if it don't, it doesn't, does it? And we have to go again. I'll be back next week on Monday, hopefully, unless Dore shuffles me all over the place again. I have got a life outside of his YouTube channel. Just kidding. No, but I'll be back on Monday. Hopefully it's to talk about a win, because whilst that was a tough watch on Saturday, this is a tough show to talk about a 5-0 defeat. But I appreciate all the guys tuning in, everybody who's come on, and supported what we're trying to do. All we love doing is talking about football. If that's a bad thing, then you don't have to watch. But for those that do watch, absolutely fantastic. Just a couple of more comments before we go. Just interesting to see what player Cooper goes for in January. We spoke about that a lot. Do check back. I made a point about Burnley. Burnley had battle and still in defence and weren't getting beat ever last season. I'm just making the point that we can turn it around, that anybody can turn it around. Football is amazing. If we knew that Forest were going to get relegated, we'd all be millionaires because we put all our money on everything on it. But we can't be that confident. It's probably going to happen, with the way things are shaping up. But sport is sport, and it doesn't always work out like that. Big Mark says, come on, you Reds. Again, a bit of positivity to end on. Justin says, thanks, Des. Up the Forest. Claire says, another great show, Des. Thank you. Kay says, a nice show, Des. Up the Forest. Gary said, cheers, mate. Come on, you Reds. And on that, like I say, thumbs up for the episode if you can. Show some support to it. Really, really appreciate you tuning in. You know, just like Arsenal, I keep reiterating it. I'll keep saying it. It's a tough watch, but hopefully it can get better. Hopefully it's better next week. Come on, have your say. Hit that link. You know, it's not all bad talking about Forest. There's plenty of positives we can take from supporting the Reds. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to Do Daily for another week on Dialing with Des. Like Dor always says, up the Forest.